All right, guys, welcome back to the Hunter's Quest podcast. This is your host, Hunter McWaters, and we are back this week with another episode having to do with deer hunting in the desert, specifically Arizona, although we talk about Mexico a little bit. My guest this week is a guy who's got tons of experience doing this type of hunting. His name is Jay Scott. You may have seen him on MeatEater. He also has a really big podcast called Jay Scott Outdoors, and just a wealth of knowledge about glassing and optics and Coues deer and just all kinds of stuff relating to hunting in the desert. So, as I've mentioned before, I am heading out to Arizona to bow hunt for mule deer and Coues deer in mid-January. So, I've been talking to a couple people lately just about this hunt specifically, trying to learn about it, and I wanted to get these episodes out so that other guys who might be planning a trip out there or been thinking about doing it in the future would get some timely information about this hunt. So again, there's a lot of really great over-the-counter archery opportunity in January, and it's a really awesome way to extend your season. I'm really looking forward to going out there and running around chasing animals in January. So if it's something you guys are planning on doing or maybe just dreaming about doing in the future, like I said, the tag is over the counter in many units. They just did close down a few units for the over the counter opportunity, but there still is a lot available. So hope you guys enjoy this episode. Jay's a really interesting guy. We talk about hunting, but we also talk about his story and him getting into the industry and his faith a little bit. He's a man of faith, and just life is one of those ones where the conversation flowed pretty easily. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I think you will. Please go ahead and leave me a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks again for all your support, and looking forward to sharing some content with you guys from Arizona and more stuff coming up this year. So be on the lookout for that. And thanks as always for your support. And we'll see you next week. All right, so I'm here today, guys, with my guest, Jay Scott from Jay Scott Outdoors. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. So you don't know this yet, but I'm actually headed out your way. I got my plane tickets booked, and I'm headed to Arizona January 9th through 19th.
Nice.
So
For
looking forward to
archery deer.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool time of year because those deer, both Coues deer and mule deer, are rutting, and so it's gained a lot of popularity over the last
Yeah.
few years. But for years, a lot of the locals and some non-residents really got to enjoy, hunting deer, both Coues and muleys during the rut. And a lot of times you can get a javelina permit,
Mm-hmm.
most of it's by draw, but you can put in ahead of time and get a javelina permit at the same time.
Yeah.
So, and then you can be chasing quail. So, it's the time of year that the weather is nice in Arizona, and a lot of people really like to get out and enjoy
Yeah.
watching deer rut and do their thing for sure.
Yeah, man. I'm a deer junkie, and so just the idea of the fact that, I'm on the East Coast, I'm in Virginia, and I got to do a fair amount of traveling. So I've been hunting deer since August. I started this August up in Kodiak hunting Sitka blacktails, and just the fact that the season's not over yet, it just charges me up. You know what I mean? It's one more opportunity to get out there and chase deer around.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that draws people for this archery hunt. It's in January. The weather, we think it's cold for us, but it's probably mid 20s in the morning and warms up, 60s, 70s, sometimes even low 80s. We hope
Mm,
not for better deer hunting, but the sunshine is the big thing. I take people down to Mexico and Coues deer hunt down there in January, and a lot of the hunters that come, they're laid back and they're looking for deer, but they're like, Jay, it's raining straight down, it's snowing, it's the sleeting where I come from.
yeah.
This 65, 70-degree weather is a huge bonus, and then we get to look
Yeah.
at rutting deer. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I've never hunted in Arizona. I did get a chance to. I wasn't really technically hunting. I was filming a elk hunt in New Mexico this year, but that was cool, just being in a different environment, you know. And the desert's so beautiful and so unique. You know, I come from swampy, high humidity, mosquitoes everywhere, you know, kind of environment, and just flat as a pancake. So it's just really beautiful to get that completely different terrain, you know, see this different stuff that God's created, you know.
I think the big thing too is it's so wide open.
Mm,
The little bit that I've been back east, everything's really green. You've got a lot of, heavy vegetation and big tall trees. And out here you can see, the
yeah.
skyline in every direction, and you've got a lot of open space and open sky, if you will. And it brings glassing and being able to view and monitor deer with optics into
Mm-hmm.
play, where a lot of people don't get to sit down and just glass a hillside for 2 to 3 hours,
Yeah.
or a couple of days for that matter. So from that aspect, there's a I know why there's a big draw here in Arizona during the archery deer hunt for sure. Now they have made a bunch of changes on units and closed some down, and so make sure you check the regs to figure out where you're going and make sure
Sure.
everything's open. Because it
Yeah.
used to be pretty much, other than the Kaibab and the Strip, it used to be pretty much statewide, just wide open,
Mm.
most of December and most of January. So just anybody out there listening, if you haven't checked, go ahead and check the regulations and
Yeah.
make sure wherever you're planning to go is open and still legal to hunt.
Yeah. Fortunately for me, I'm gonna go and be meeting up with some guys out there that know a little bit more about what they're doing, have done it before. So I'll have a little bit of help on my side. But yeah, and the other thing too about just being out there is, you know, I love spot and stalk style hunting. And, you know, out here, like I said, it's flat as a pancake. The only cover you're gonna get is trees and brush, and you good luck sneaking through that on a whitetail. So it's just next to maybe even impossible to spot and stalk. Actually, I did make it a goal this year to spot and stalk, you know, kill a whitetail, and I did actually get it done on a doe, kind of getting creative, but it's almost impossible without any terrain features.
Yeah, I mean, if you're coming out here, one of the things that you're going to like is, ridge lines, hills, mountains,
Yeah.
being able to kind of watch and see what the deer are doing and then make an efficient plan to maybe go up and around, or, get in position where they might work their way towards you.
Yeah.
I would encourage you to, if you can, hunt with a buddy, whether you're using hand signals or radios. Radios are legal out here.
That's good to know.
But whether someone's just directing you by hand signals or through your earbud, um, get in a position that you think the deer will move towards you. In other words, don't constantly be trying to press it in the desert, and inching in on them and trying to get in their bedroom. Maybe get the wind right, get over kind of close to where they're rutting around. And then
Mm-hmm.
the percentages are that, you have a pretty good chance that they're going to come towards you at some point in time.
Mm.
I think a lot of people try and just go right in and stalk into, 30 yards, and they end up getting caught because the desert's hard to stalk in. It's
Yeah.
loud. I think a more efficient plan would be to kind of get the wind right and then just play the odds of, are they moving in a certain direction? Can I
Mm.
get kind of where they're going? And then they come to you and you let things happen, rather than so many stalks that I see people make and that I've made myself, where you just feel like you just need to get in there on them instead of being patient and
Yeah.
kind of letting them work towards you. A thing I like to do and have done for years is like watch him for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's a certain big buck, watch him for a day or two and just figure out what he's doing. He may go through the same, rut some does and then walk up through a saddle 2, 3 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you can play that game where you're just waiting for that deer to follow that same pattern that he's done, where he's rutting some does, you're fighting with chasing some other bucks, and then he goes off to, you know, off through the saddle, you can be sitting there and waiting. And I think a lot of people don't really, they just see a buck and they just go after it because of
Yeah.
limited time, which is understandable.
Sure. Yeah, I'll have a pretty good amount of time out there, so hopefully I can be a little bit patient. So it's almost like a combination of spot and stalk and ambush style hunting, kind of a little bit of both mixed in there. That's
Yeah, and I
smart.
mean, I wouldn't rule out, if it's hot and dry, and it hasn't rained and there's not a lot of water. If you go down in the canyon bottoms and just see water everywhere, that it'll be tough. But if it's dry and hasn't rained in a couple of weeks, I would not, during the peak of the rut, I would not, pass up the opportunity to sit, from say midday or mid morning through mid afternoon on a water hole, because a
Mm,
lot of times those bucks are chasing does and they run over and get a drink. So if you find a tank that's got quite a bit of deer sign on it, that's something you could do from say 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and spot and stalk them first light and last light, and then kind of sit and see if something comes to get a
yeah.
drink.
So how has it been out there? Has it been dry, or what's the kind of the conditions like now?
So we had an incredible wet summer. We had just unbelievable monsoon rains, and the feed is very, very good.
That's good.
Then we entered into a period probably for the last, say 90 days where it's been really, really dry.
Okay.
And then as of last week and actually today, we're getting a little storm. So, I would say that it between now and when you're coming out is what I would watch, but it looks like we might have a storm or two kind of coming through. So that's gonna probably put water, little potholes and kind of all over, and might rule out the water sitting. But you never know out here if it gets hot and that water evaporates, and then and habitually they go to those dirt water tanks as well. Even if there's puddles, they when there's puddles around and they can get water readily available, they don't tend to go back to their pattern of using those water holes.
Yeah. Okay. How's the temperature been? Has it been pretty cool or warm or?
No, it's been normal. I would say normal to hot, or
Okay.
warmer than normal. And you can pretty much bet it's going to be 20s, 30s in the morning, and it'll warm up to high 60s, mid 70s during the day, and pretty repeatable pattern there. Pretty
Okay.
predictable.
So yeah, even for me, I mean, honestly, where I'm located, 20 is pretty cold. So that'll be nice.
Well, don't I mean 20 mid 20s in the desert will surprise you how cold it'll feel. I don't know
Oh
if you're
yeah.
driving a Ranger or quads, or if you're just going in a truck, but we're hunting in Mexico a lot in January and have those long UTV rides. Sometimes an hour on some of these different ranches, an hour and a half in the morning in the
Yeah.
mid 20s. It'll get your attention for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't that cold when I was in New Mexico. I think a couple mornings it was in the 30s. I think we may have gotten ice a couple mornings, like a light frost. But yeah, it usually started off about an hour on an ATV, which was pretty miserable.
Yeah,
Not to
yeah.
mention I was crammed in the back of a one person ATV, like was not designed for two people. So that was fun. Um, but yeah, man, I would like to dig a little more into the details on deer hunting and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted to first just kind of hear a little bit about you and kind of your story and how you got into the industry and just kind of what your journey's been like.
Yeah, it's been a fun ride. I'll be 49 here in February, and I've been doing this a long time. I started out as a kid, didn't really have my dads didn't really hunt. My grandfather was a cattle rancher, and my grandmother got me Field and Stream and Outdoor Life magazine. And
Nice.
as a kid, 5, 6, 7, 10 years old, I was the kid that was folding the corner of the magazine on little articles and kept a stack of them, and I knew right where to go when it was bass fishing time, and okay, look up some tips and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Are you from
um,
Arizona originally?
well, I was born in California, but moved
Okay.
over here when I was one, and so I feel like I'm an Arizona native.
Yeah.
Long story short, I just always had a fascination with hunting and fishing, and some friends of mine, their dad took me when I was kind of a low teenager, if you will, seventh, eighth, ninth grade type of
Mm-hmm.
thing, and just fell in love with it. And as soon as I was able to get my first vehicle, then I was footloose and fancy free and able to go do those things. I also played golf at the same time
Okay.
in grade school and high school and college, and so that took up a lot of my time. As soon as college was over with, that's when I was able to really pursue hunting and fishing without being tied to a golf schedule or, trying to, keep coaches happy and that kind of stuff.
Gotcha.
And long story short, 97, I got a guide's license. The reason I got a guide's license is just to um, maybe increase my amount of time I could spend in the field. And
Mm-hmm.
if I got a guide's license, I could quote unquote, justify my time in the field, even though I wasn't making any money.
Yeah.
It was, a way to do it more. And I also started my real estate career right out of college. 1997, I got my real estate license. And, I've been selling real estate ever since. I'm did a little bit of agency work where I was representing buyers and sellers, but after a couple of years, very quickly just started buying properties for myself and investing in real estate, in land and residential rentals and income producing properties and stuff.
Hmm.
And that's my main bread and butter business right there. And that's been able to allow me to, afford allow me to afford all of the things that I've been able to do in hunting and fishing and,
Yeah.
traveling the West, for since 1997, I've been out of Arizona, all over the West, fly fishing and gone the entire summer. And, elk hunting, I was a guide in Arizona for 20 years. I did elk hunts for 20 years. And then in 2017, I was asked by a friend to be a ranch manager of his ranch that he bought at the ot6 Ranch in Colorado. It's a
Mm.
50,000 acre ranch.
Wow.
And we just finished our 5th season there. I'm at the ot6 September and half of October. Then we come back here to Arizona. In the middle of all that, around that same time, actually before I got out of college in end of 95, 96, I actually went to Mexico for the first time.
Mm.
And uh, as I grew fonder and fonder of Mexico from the first time I went there, I just was fascinated with the Sonoran Desert and started taking hunters. And this will be my 26th season,
Wow.
January, where I'm taking hunters in Mexico, and we do primarily Coues deer hunts. And this will be my 13th spring doing Gould's turkeys. So
Hmm.
we have a Coues deer and Gould's turkey operation there in Mexico, both in Sonora and Chihuahua, Mexico. And it's really grown over the years. It's something that, it's, you've got Arizona and then you've got Mexico. And the thing that's so alluring about Mexico is you have a higher buck to doe ratio. So you've got more bucks. And then obviously the properties that we're hunting in Mexico are private property. So, you can leave a buck that maybe earlier in the week you want to kind of keep looking and see if you
Mm-hmm.
can find a better buck. You can come back and a lot of times find that buck. Whereas, on public land in Arizona, as soon as you walk away from a buck, you don't know if that buck will ever be there.
Yeah.
A lot of times they are, but a lot of times mentally,
Yeah.
it's hard
That's
to, when
hard.
you don't see them for a couple of days, you think maybe somebody else got them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my life in a nutshell. Outfitter, real estate investor. Also started my podcast, J Scott Outdoors,
Yeah.
Western Hunting and Fishing podcast, back in February of 2015. So that will be 7 years old here
Nice.
in 2 months in February. Got,
Which is a long time for in the
yeah,
podcast world. Yeah.
over 800 episodes, and
Wow.
it's been a real blessing to be able to have conversations with guys. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't get messages from people that have listened to the podcast and gain some bit of knowledge from the guests that I have on. And so for me, that's the reward. The reward is to be able to help people
Yeah.
be better and be more successful and enjoy themselves outdoors. I've been so blessed with the encounters and experiences that I've had outdoors. The older I get, all I want to do is be able to share
Mm-hmm.
what I know, and hope that there's a bunch of people listening, young or old, that might be able to encounter half the things that I've seen and heard
Mm.
and been through. So that's kind of the carrot out in front of me, dangling in front of me at all times, is just trying to pass along whatever I can to help people.
For sure, man. Yeah, I know you got a lot of great content. Um, on your Instagram page, I think the first thing in your bio says "Saved by Grace." So I'm interested to hear like how faith has played a role, or like when were you raised in the church, or did you get saved as a adult, or how'd that all go
Yeah,
down?
so I was raised in a Church of Christ church, and about 12 or 13, I told my parents I wanted to get baptized, and I did. And every day, as everyday life is a struggle, and
Yeah.
if I wasn't saved by grace, I'd be in a world of hurt, because we all have a sinful nature, and we all wake up and we're sinners. That's what we are. And I'm just grateful that I have, uh, you know, Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And
Yeah, man.
without
Amen.
Him, I'd be rolling around in the gutter. And
Me too.
so it's one of those things that I constantly have to remind myself, um, who I am and what I'm here for.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's something that's nice to have as a daily reminder, and something to lean on too.
Yeah, man. And I think guys like us, um, I think God put our love of the outdoors and hunting into us. Have you learned any specific lessons about God, or have you learned anything about God through hunting, or have you learned anything about hunting through your relationship with God?
Well, I think, yeah, I mean, it's probably a 9-hour podcast. But, I think it comes down to what I've learned is life is tough, just like going on a hunt is tough, and you have to be patient, and there's
Mm,
going to be all sorts of things that get thrown in your path. And you come out and they've got a flat quad tire, and then you fix it, and you get down the road, and you get to the gate, and the gate's got a lock on it, and just certain things. And it seems like every day I'm just constantly these hurdles. And there'll be a time I'll just throw a tantrum and get all upset, and all bent out of shape, and then I have to remind myself that maybe the flat tire, maybe that was there for a reason, and maybe it was there to test me to see how I would handle it. And
yeah.
maybe me yelling at the lady at the bank yesterday because she couldn't open a new account, and I had to set an appointment. Maybe there's a reason for things that are out of my control, that I need to
Mm,
just let uh roll off my back, so to speak.
yeah.
I'm a real type A personality, and so I have, I'm constantly fighting, uh, being self-reliant, and
Hmm.
not leaning on, his promises and his principles. So it seems like every day I get a little slap in the face to bring me back down to
To
earth, and
remind you.
yeah, a little reminder for sure.
Yeah, I'm similar. I mean, I think one of the biggest things, and it seems like I almost have to relearn it on every hunt in some ways, but I think I'm getting better at remembering it. But a lot of times you put so much pressure on yourself to fill that tag or whatever, and you kind of step outside the experience, and you kind of stop enjoying it on some level. And I was like in Kodiak this year, we filled my friend's tag, and we got it all on camera, and we're like, okay, cool. And we were seeing a bunch of deer, and we're like, all right, we're gonna tag out early, gonna get an awesome film made, and it's gonna be sweet. And we filled that first tag. The next day, it was 4 straight days of rain and fog, and the bucks just disappeared. And like for 3 days, I was getting stressed, and we spent all this money, and I'm not gonna get anything else on camera, and da 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 da. And then I had this moment, which I've had on hunts before, I always bring a little pocket Bible with me, and one of my favorite things to go back to is Psalm 37. Where it says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart." And I just said, you know what? I'm done worrying about this. I am in this amazing place. Like, look where I am right now. It's a blessing just to be here. And I'm complaining about not filling a tag. So I just said, I'm going to enjoy this trip no matter what. And it seems like I always learn, like, when I just let go and let God, it sounds cliche, but just enjoy the experience, enjoy God, delight in Him. And then, it was on that fourth day, or the fifth day was our last day out there. Weather cleared, high pressure rolled in, and me and my buddy doubled up on two really nice bucks within 30 seconds of each other, and just had a glorious last day and pack out. And that's something that I always get reminded of when I'm out there.
Yeah, and the older I get, the more I understand that it's more about the experience, and it's more about just the overall flow of the trip. And
Totally.
a long time ago, I tried to remove the success of the trip based on if you get one or not. And I think sometimes people kind of get a misconceived thought with me, because I'm so into trying to help people learn how to field judge and score and be more proficient at judging these animals. And I think some people that don't know me really well think that on the face value or on the surface, that all he cares about is score. And the reality is it couldn't be further from the truth. With that being said, I think there's a place for being very efficient and doing things right and trying to be accurate. And for me, field judging, why it's taken such a big part of some of the content and stuff that I produce, is basically so when you're hunting with your buddies and you're looking at a buck and he's like, well, how big is it? And if you don't have any idea,
right,
who wants to hunt with someone that when calls you over and says, I got a big buck, and you get over there and it's not, and you just got out of your tree stand or whatever you were doing and came all the way over there and looked at his photo or whatever, and like, it's not a big buck. But circling back, like, I think I try and tell my hunters, whatever hunt we're going on, let's just there's going to be things that happen that we just shake our head and think, how did we even get ourselves in this mess? And what you see on Instagram is not, it's not a true depiction of how things go. We all know that. I mean, we see the trophy photo at the end, and then you think, oh man, he just went out there in a day and found this giant buck or bull or ram or whatever. But we all know that, you're sliding up and down cliffs and grabbing cat claw and, getting slapped in the face by brush and flat tires and all that stuff. It's just part of the experience. So with me, on all these hunts that I'm organizing and, trying to put together as an outfitter, I always enjoy doing, my 2 full weeks of guiding hunters myself, where I can kind of take the outfitter hat off and become more of the guide and become more of, like, that's an agave cactus, that's a palo verde tree, this is a mesquite tree, that's a century plant, and kind of show them something that maybe they've never even seen or heard of, or, go through some of the different, grasses and what have you, and make it point out stuff that they never even thought of. In other words, there's a bigger picture out there.
For sure.
Watching sunsets, people, I used to catch some flack because I would constantly be taking pictures of sunsets and sunrises and posting them, and because I enjoy them. For me, it's like, your head is swimming and, where's that buck at? Where's he going to be? Where do I need to be? And then all of a sudden you're hiking in and you look up, your headlamps on, and you look up and just the sky is just blowing up in front of you. And then you go, wait a minute, I'm just a small little piece in this whole picture and puzzle. So that's why I enjoy sunsets and sunrises.
Yeah, man, you got to take the time to enjoy those little things and get the whole picture, like you were saying. Do you have a favorite Western hunt? Like, if you had to pick one that you could just only do the rest of your life?
I get asked that question a lot. And my wife would say that whatever season it is, that's what his favorite is at the time. And it's probably true. I mean, right now my mind's totally focused on Coues deer.
Yeah.
But I love the Gould's turkey in the spring. I love all turkeys, but for me, the Gould's turkey are really, really special. The Coues deer are special. I always say that I really don't have one thing that I enjoy the most. And
Yeah.
and honestly, if I answered it honestly, there probably is one or two that I might enjoy over a long period of time more.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I think is huge for someone that's been doing it as long as I have is I have, you know, my fishing that I go really hard at in the summer, and then I'm done. I don't fish at all till the next summer.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have elk. Then I have Coues deer. Then I have turkey. Then I have bighorn sheep. In other words, my mind is constantly running so fast. It's nice to be all in on some
Yeah.
adventure or focus on an animal. Like right now, it's rutting Coues deer coming up in the month of January, a little over a month away. And then as soon as it's over, it kind of shuts off and it starts transitioning into spring turkey and getting all my turkey stuff set. And
Yeah.
so I would there's some people out there and they just love what I would call eastern whitetail deer, and that's all they want to do, and that's great, fantastic. But I would encourage people out there to have things you love, but it's so nice to be able to have when you get older.
Mm-hmm.
It's so nice to have multiple number of things that you love so that you don't get burned out on one thing. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that I know that they love to chase wild turkey and that's all they like to do, but after 30 years of it, some of them kind of just that gets old.
Yeah.
So with me, with real estate, with podcasting, with the hunting, with the fishing, it's nice to be able to have things to really intensely focus on, but then be able to basically wash it out and move on to the next thing and keep you energized.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, variety is the spice of life, and that's why I love Western hunting too. Is just a variety of, ecosystems and species, and just especially coming from, I love deer hunting. That's how I got my start. But like going out this year to Wyoming and taking an antelope and just learning about new species, it's just so cool, man. There's just so much cool
Yeah.
stuff out there that God created for us to enjoy, man.
Yeah, and,
Um,
and not only that, I think, you look all over the world. I think it's
yeah,
easy for us, Americans, we have great hunting in our country, but I mean, there is some phenomenal hunting and fishing all across the world. And I see it so much that, guys, gals, whatever, they're in their element, they're in their backyard, and that's what they're focused on. What they don't understand is someone across the globe on the other side of the world could be focusing on their animal or their fish or their
hmm
adventure and have just as much passion.
yeah,
I think we as humans, I think we just tend to like think what we're doing is the most important thing.
yeah.
But I would encourage people, broaden your horizons and, travel all over and, try and if that's what you're into, try and experience as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, for sure, man. So do you gravitate more? It sounds like you gravitate more towards the Coues deer than the mule deer, though, huh?
You know, so the mule deer hunting around here, we have some really good hunting on the Arizona Strip and on the Kaibab. This year was a really rough year, probably one of the worst antler growth years we've
Hmm.
had in a long, long time. But as far as size of bucks, and then the rest of the state is what I would kind of call mediocre mule deer. And
Okay.
what's hard is, I hunted Colorado's during some of the biggest boom and biggest deer periods of time on some of the best places. And so
Mm.
I'm spoiled.
Yeah.
Is really what it boils down to. It's like, 200-inch bucks and, big giant frames and trash and all that kind of stuff. Arizona, other than the strip and the Kaibab, the rest of the state, our deer are what I would call smaller. So it's almost like if you were fishing for, 10, 15 years and you're catching, 10-pound largemouth
Hmm.
bass and they're just smashing the surface and, giant fish, would you be as energized about maybe going and catching 4-pound fish? Probably not.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I am with mule deer in the
I
rest of
got
the
you.
state, in that, you know, there's some really nice bucks, 160, 170, 180, maybe type bucks. Okay. Um, but I've chased big deer for a long time and it's not one of those things that, just drives me.
I got you.
Smaller deer, Desert deer tend to not have the mass, not have the big boxy frames. And,
Hmm.
people listen and go, oh, what about this buck? And, this one's, there's always
Of
exceptions,
course,
but
yeah.
general rule, I'm a Coues deer nut. I love Coues deer. I love everything about them. I love the country they live in. I like how wary they are.
Yeah.
I've spent very little time hunting eastern or midwestern whitetails. I've only gone out to Kansas once and got a buck. My experience with Coues deer or with whitetail is through Coues. They're a super glassing oriented animal, glassing intensive. Uh, they're mule deer will see you and kind of run off. Coues deer they'll drop down and bed down, almost hunker down
Hmm.
like a quail.
Interesting.
It's just one of those things. Whether it's someone that's a steelhead fisherman or a brown trout fisherman, I mean, they just have differences. A Coues
Yeah.
deer, mule deer hunter. When you come out to hunt, I don't know if you're focusing on mule deer or Coues or if you're going to go after both. And there's country that both animals kind of overlap in.
Yeah.
And then there's country that's primarily muleys and primarily Coues. General rule of thumb is, when you get up, 3, 4, 5, 6,000 feet, you're going to get mostly Coues.
Hmm.
And when, you're in the southern Arizona, most of the stuff, in the 2,000, 2,500 and lower is mule deer.
Okay. Yeah, I was actually I'm glad you brought that up because I was actually gonna ask you, like, so for whatever. So first of all, I'm lucky in that I'm sort of like in the beginning of this Western hunting kind of journey, where like I'd love to get a nice representative buck, but I would probably be happy with like any branch antlered buck, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm just in that phase of life where I'm not looking for a huge trophy,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
yeah, and I somehow, I don't know why, I'm just from my gut, I'm somewhat a little bit more attracted to mule deer right now, just because I never
I
killed
think
one.
it's the width of mule deer and the
Maybe.
size.
I,
And
I saw a couple this year when I was out in New Mexico. The first mule deer I've ever seen, I thought they were elk. I was
yeah,
like, they were huge. I couldn't get over it.
I think too, when you're from Virginia and you're from back east and you see whitetails all the time, there's
Yeah,
not that intrigue like there is, say, with a mule deer that you don't have.
right.
And I get that a lot. I get people really excited about mule deer, and mule deer are phenomenal animals. I love them.
Yeah,
I've just been really spoiled over the years to hunt some of the best places in the world
yeah,
for mule deer. But I mean, the mule deer opportunity out here is great. I mean,
yeah.
if you come in with the expectations of, man, I would love just a branch antlered buck. Your opportunities are endless out here with the bow.
Oh,
And the
that's cool.
nice thing is that time frame that you picked, that ninth, I think you said ninth through the
19th.
19th. I mean, that's like prime time for rutting for both of them.
Nice.
And
Would
if
you
you're
recommend for a beginner to key on one or to kind of go after both or
Well, I would just glass and see what you see, and if
yeah.
if you want to focus more on mule deer, I would probably be in a little bit lower, more flatter, lower kind of rolly desert. If you
Mhm.
want to focus on Coues, you kind of got to get up into the hills a little bit more, and there are exceptions to those rules where you have muleys at high and you have Coues deer down flat. But
Right.
if you're hunting, I don't know if you're hunting southern Arizona or
Yeah,
you hunting
southern.
southern. Okay,
Just
so
like not too much or like south of Tucson but not too far south of Tucson.
So yeah, you're going to focus on like the rolling, flatter, more like just little hills and rolling Ocotillo and Palo Verde and maybe some mesquite, but the mesquite kind of gets up in that 3,000 foot range. But
Mhm.
the cactus and greasewoods, and I would just get and when you're doing your scouting, I would just kind of find wherever the landscape is that you're hunting, I would look at where can I kind of get up on a little knob, where can I gain a little bit of elevation where I can get up there and I can look in a 360-degree view or maybe
Mhm.
a 180-degree view, see as much country as I can and try and spot these groups of deer, because there'll be does over here with a buck and does over here, and kind
Yeah.
of get a lay of where they're at. and then make a plan from there. Okay, there's another closer knob that I can get over to and get a little better look at them. Of course, if you're just going after a branch antlered buck, that's a great position to be in, because pretty much if you see a buck of any size, you're going to be like, yeah, I'll go see if I can get over close to it. I think the biggest key for anyone coming and learning how to Western hunt, whatever animal you're hunting, is use your eyes and be efficient, and put those binoculars on a tripod and spend a couple hours in the morning just looking in all directions, trying to, okay, there's quite a few deer over here to the north. There's not as many to the south. Why is that? Oh, there's a water hole over here. They're really close, and that's why they're there. Okay. Or, try and basically kind of dissect what's going on, and then make a plan as to how am I going to be efficient and get over there and kind of get in their bedroom, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Just kind of starting with a really wide funnel and like just over the days trying to put the puzzle pieces together and figure it out. It's so cool when it all comes together.
Yeah, I always say we're tightening the noose on them. I mean, it's one of those things. I'm a real believer in like efficiency and, being effective, and, making a plan that's going to work, being patient, maybe not going in until the right circumstance. I'm big on, having someone keep their eye on what you're going after.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge mistake that people make is, two guys up on a knob, two buddies, they spot a buck or a group of deer that are running around, and they say, let's go after them. Well, the best thing is leave someone up to watch them, so that when you go down and get, you're moving, and they say, hey, a quail hunter came through and spooked the whole thing, you're going to waste all day.
Yeah.
Or they can at least give you the signal, whether it's, they're still right there. So you're in the game. You only have so many days to hunt. So be as efficient with your time as you possibly can.
Yeah. How is the pressure out there? Is it pretty heavy, or what's it like?
So I think pressure is relative. And I think there's a little bit unknown with, a bunch of these units getting shut down. I think there's like 25 units or something like that got shut down.
Wow.
So I think what it's going to do, unfortunately, I think it's going to push a lot of people into, other areas, because they're limited now as to where they can go. So I really don't know the answer to that question. Before, when the whole state was open, it's usually not that big of an issue, but I think this year it's probably going to be more of an issue. But if you're just coming out wanting to shoot a branch antlered buck, I think there's enough to go around that you're going to have some opportunities, and I think you'll be just fine.
Yeah. I mean, as far as pressure goes, I was in a really easy draw unit in Wyoming, between two pretty big cities in Wyoming. And so, dealt with pretty heavy pressure out there. I was able to fill 2 tags. So I don't think it can be any worse than that, probably.
I think as much as you can hunt during the week, out of that time frame,
for sure.
Obviously the weekends you're going to have pressure in whatever activity you're doing, hunting, fishing, but more of the weekdays, and be efficient with your time. Be up on the knob in the dark, waiting for it to get light, and just kind of outwork, if you will, everyone else, and be just one step ahead of everyone else, and you should be fine.
Yeah. I'll have, I'll have a good solid, 8-9 days to hunt, and, only 2 of them will be weekends. So that should be pretty good. And go ahead. Were you going to say something?
No, I mean, I just think, a lot of people cut their time short and only have 3 or 4 days to hunt, and that makes it tough.
Yeah.
I think you'll be better with that 8 or 9 days, and you'll learn a lot in those 8 or 9 days, and be able to hit the ground next year or the year after when you come and be that much better. And I think it'll be good for you.
Yeah, I'm just stoked. This will be the first time I've been on a mule deer hunt, so I'm just excited about that. Just being able to go out there and chase some animals around, and be able to have the opportunity to get an over-the-counter tag. It's pretty cool, So you did mention I did want to like ask you a little bit about Mexico because that's something that's definitely interesting to me. I know a lot of guys probably might be interested. They might be like, the logistics or might be cost prohibitive. Could you give us just like some ballpark figures, or just tell us what that's kind of like? Like, is it pretty easy to jump on one of those hunts, or what's it like?
Yeah. So for the Mexico Coues, I have two options. Basically, I have the fully guided option and the do-it-yourself option. The do-it-yourself option has been very, very popular over the years. The MeatEater crew,
Yeah, I saw
Giannis
that
and Steve, I
episode.
think this is like their seventh year. Yeah, I think they've done 7 years in a row now, something like that, coming down and doing the do-it-yourself option. The do-it-yourself option ranges around that $3,500 mark, and that's an exclusive lease for your group for your hunt. So in other words, it's not a ranch that a group comes before you and another group and another group. That's your group. You get a group of 3, 4, 5, 6 buddies together, and you have a private piece of property,
Wow.
ranging from 5,000 acres to 30,000 acres, and that's your ranch for the season.
And is that
And you come out,
$3,500
and
per
most guys
guy?
come out.
I'm sorry, I
It's
think
it's $3,500 for you to come.
per person or as a group.
Yeah, per person.
Okay,
Correct.
cool.
Per person. Yep. And that doesn't guarantee you a buck, but it gets you a ranch to hunt. It gets you a ranch house to stay in. It gets you a deer tag and the opportunity to harvest a buck. And I can hire a Mexican cook for you to cook your meals. I also have an escort that works the border crossings for me, that helps the groups cross. The DIY groups, you have to bring your own vehicles. I don't provide any of the transportation. So it's basically guys come, most bring, side by sides and quads and trucks. The MeatEater crew just rents vehicles right out of the airport and drives rental vehicles down. And it's just a do-it-yourself hunt. It's basically a lease on the property, and that's your ranch, and you guys get to go hunt. And most hunters hunt for about 6, 7 days.
Yeah, that sounds like a really cool gig, man. I think it's attractive to me because I like. I'm not. There's nothing wrong with guided hunts, but my personality. If I have a guide, a lot of times I'll tend to just kind of mentally check out and just like sort of just follow the guy around. And I think a lot of people just do that naturally. I like being forced to figure it out on my own, kind of thing, And so I really like that option, and that sounds like a
Yeah.
pretty good deal, man. $3,500 sounds pretty legit.
Yeah, it's our DIY hunters have a lot of success, and every year harvest bucks from 90 inches to, I mean, we've had them as big as 140 inches on those
Wow.
DIY hunts. I would say the average is probably around 100-inch type buck, and one of the things that having your own piece of private ground in Mexico allows you to do is, you don't have to worry about the pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why it's so popular is, the guys like yourself that don't want to go on a guided hunt, which we also offer, but just want to have basically a lease where they can go and be the only people hunting. I think that, it resonates with a lot of people for sure.
So do you book up pretty fast on those, or do you have pretty a lot of spots, or how's that work?
Well, both. We have a lot of spots, but normally we book about a year out in advance. So right now we're December 15th of 2021, our 2022 January season. So I recommend everyone hunt during the peak of the rut, which is roughly January 10th through the 30th, is kind of the 20-day window when it's the best. And we are booked obviously for next month. What
Right.
I'm booking right now is for 2023. So I'm taking bookings now, and through the hunt, and when I get back from the hunt, I will be booking hunts for the following January.
Okay.
So I'm taking reservations right now for next January.
You still got a pretty good amount of spots open?
Yes, I do.
Cool. I might have to, I'm thinking about, I might have to hit you up on that, man. Um, do you have mule deer down there as well? Or is it Coues deer only or both?
There are mule deer, but I just strictly do Coues.
Okay.
Just do Coues and Gould's turkey.
Okay. Cool.
Gould's turkey is in the spring in April and May, and Coues is, like I said, I focus from that about the 10th through the 30th of January, during the peak of the rut when the bucks are chasing does and really out in the open and running around and acting like wild men.
Yeah. That's always fun, man. So yeah, we had a really good conversation here. There's just a couple more things I wanted to hit you with you real quick. One thing real quick. So the moon, I noticed the full moon, I think is around the 12th or something this year, January, somewhere in there. You think that's going to 17th? Okay.
It's the 17th of January.
You think that's going to make things tough or?
Yeah, to me, it's yeah, the 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, the moon phase in those 4 or 5 days, whenever they fall on the 15th through the 20th, it's a really challenging time in Mexico, speaking specifically, because those deer, the biggest question is, are those deer going to rut before the moon? Are they going to rut during the moon? Or are they going to rut after the moon? I would rather have a full moon at the beginning of January or the end of January. When historically over 26 years, the rut is like the 10th through the 30th. When that moon falls on the 17th, what that does is it's so bright at night that those deer, those bucks are chasing those does at night, and then they tend to, at prime time, lay down.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really change what they're doing that much. What it changes is our ability to see them, because it's light, the 4 or 5 days leading up to the full moon, 4 or 5 days after the full moon, it's virtually light out. You don't even need a flashlight to walk.
Yeah.
And so they're just running around. And so they move less during prime peak hours in the morning and prime peak hours in the in the evening. What I do see them doing is moving a lot. So they'll be running all night. They'll chase. It'll start to get light. They'll bed down.
Mm-hmm.
They'll stay down for a couple of hours, and then 9-10 o'clock, they're back up, and you get a lot of midday movement. Basically, if you were up all night, what would your hours be? You'd be up all night. Say you're out fishing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're up all night fishing. As soon as it starts to get light, you start getting real sleepy. You've done that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So then you take a nap for 3 or 4 hours, and then you're like, let's go fishing again midday.
Yeah.
Then you're like, man, I'm tired. And then you sleep until it gets dark again, and then you're like, let's go again.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a condensed version of how they are, how they're acting. But for us as hunters, when you're trying to glass them up and they're laying down and spending time in the brush, it's hard to see them.
Yeah, for sure, man.
That's why I don't like the moon this year on the 17th, but there's nothing we can do about it. On our trips, our guided trips, we're going to hunt right through it. We're going to hunt the 10th through the 18th and the 19th through the 27th and just do the best we can.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a ton of really good podcasts out there where you get into like a lot of detail about this stuff. And so I don't necessarily want to beat a dead horse, but I just want to, do you have any just like 30,000 foot? You've already hit some good ones on this podcast, but just 30,000 foot tips for new guy going out there to hunt. Again, not necessarily looking for a monster, but just kind of starting points that you might point me out to. Not like physical starting points, but strategy starting points you'd kind of give me.
Yeah. I mean, if it were me and I was going down in the southern Arizona deserts to hunt mule deer, I would be focused on where is water permanent all year long. So where are those dirt tanks? Because there's going to be a higher concentration of does near where they have readily available water. So that's number one. Number two is, where can I find, like I was talking about before, where can I find as a hunter vantage points to give me the opportunity to get up, elevate where I can see them easier and see more of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you do find them, then I would be working on how can I strategically make a stock that's going to be most efficient and go with the highest prior or um, the highest probability stocks.
Hmm.
So in other words, if it's a stock that is just in a bad spot and you know it's probably not going to work, I would probably wait till those deer are in a different spot, or totally focus and try and find another buck, because you only have a limited amount of time. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be efficient with your time. Sometimes being efficient with your time is totally take your eye off that group of deer and start to find another where it's a little bit better terrain, where you think, oh, I can get into those deer without being detected.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at a flat and of cholla cactus or palo verdes, and there's just deer roaming all over, and you've got, you know, a particular buck you're interested in, well, if you know there's no way you can stalk without the wind blowing out some of these other deer, sometimes it's better to find a smaller group of deer that's all isolated and by itself, that especially if you're just going after any branch antlered buck,
Mm-hmm.
find something that you can make an efficient stalk on, rather than one that, you know, it's like, well, yeah, I can get in there, but likely I'm going to blow this whole thing. I don't like
Yeah,
wasting my time,
for sure.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Great, man.
if I'm after a particular buck, a specific buck, then you have to just focus on that deer, and you have to position around where you know, look at all of the different terrain features and be like, I want that buck, and I want to spend the whole hunt on that buck because I like that buck, whatever he may be. And it may be, you know, width, it may be, you know, drop time, whatever. Then you have to, that's the part that I really enjoy, of like, how do I get that particular buck and
Mm.
hone in and focus? It's a lot like fishing. I love fishing banks where, you know, moving water, you know, rowing the boat, and I've got a fisherman in the front, and we're going down the river, and I like know there's the bank that there's big fish. I love targeting and being like, okay, we don't care about these other little fish that we see rising. There's some particular spots that we need to be real efficient with our casts, get the
Mm-hmm.
fly in exactly the right spot, and you're going to hook a really big fish. That's what really gets me going.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. This has been awesome. So I have one last question. Christmas time is coming up. I need a spotting scope, but I want something. I know you're an optics guy, and so I had to ask this question. I want something. You know, I primarily do backcountry style hunts. So, and I'm already carrying around a ton of camera gear normally. So I definitely want something as compact, basically bang for buck and bang for weight. If you had to pick one spotting scope optic, you know, kind of what would you point me in the direction of?
Well, I'm not sponsored by any optics company, but I've been using Swarovski optics for 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
I have other manufacturers as well for different, you know, certain items and such, but I'm a huge Swarovski fan. I think, you know, the STX, the straight eyepiece with the 65 millimeter, is going to fit that compact, but still have really good quality. I think if you're going to do a bunch more Western hunts, you know, kicking up to that STX 85 millimeter, you're probably going to get a little bit more performance. You're going to get 20 millimeters more of the objective, which is going to get you more light gathering.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're big into filming, you might look at the ATX, which is the angled eyepiece. I'm a big straight eyepiece guy,
Okay.
but I know a lot of guys that, you know, do filming and such. They want the angled. I'm a big straight eyepiece guy for a simple reason of I like to sit on my rear end when I'm glassing. I like to sit on a pad, you know, and put my tripod out and put my binoculars and glass. And when I find a buck, I want to be able to pop my spotting scope up, you know,
Yeah.
pull the binos off, set them down, pop the spotting scope without changing my position.
Yeah.
In other words, my butt is in the same spot, my shoulders. If you go with an angled eyepiece, you have to either move up to look down or move to the side,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to change the center post either up or down. So
Sure.
that's why I'm a huge proponent of straight. I get in not arguments, but discussions with guys all the time about why I think straight eyepieces are much more efficient for a Western hunter. I
That
think
makes
your
sense.
target acquisition is better, and I think you don't have to move your center post or your body position.
Yeah.
Um, And I would tell you that Cody Nelson at Go Hunt, I call him the glassing guru. He can help you, but there's some great Vortex spotting scopes out
Mm-hmm.
there. Loopold makes it some great products. A lot of it depends on your price point.
Yeah.
But I think if you want the best, in my opinion, the Swarovski STX 65 millimeter would be the best.
Cool. Thanks, man. Anything else closing up, or if you want to just mention also where people can find you if they haven't already been tuning into your stuff?
Yeah, America's Most Wanted on TV is usually where you can see my face. No,
Milk carton.
uh, yeah, most people are listening that aren't old enough to remember the America's Most Wanted TV
Oh, I
show, but
remember it.
uh, J Scott Outdoors, J Scott Outdoors on Instagram is probably the best way to connect with me. You can type in on any podcast search J Scott Outdoors, big game hunting and fishing podcast, and it should come up. And I'm happy to help people. I appreciate you thinking of me and
Yeah,
having me
man.
on here. And
Appreciate you coming on.
I'm looking forward to seeing how your hunt goes.
Yeah, hopefully, like I said, even if I can just see some animals, get some stalks, and get some cool footage, I'll be happy. If I were to be able to fill a tag, that'd just be amazing. So, but I appreciate your time and all the tips and everything. So, thanks, man.
All right, buddy. God bless to you and all your listeners. And
You too,
again,
man.
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks.